When I woke up in the hospital, the first thing I saw was my parents standing over me, relieved, but also nervous. It was just an accident, my mom said quickly. Too quickly. My sister stood behind them, silent, avoiding my eyes. I didn't remember everything. Just fragments. A moment. A movement. Something that didn't feel accidental at all. But every time I tried to ask, they shut it down. Don't make this bigger than it is. So I stayed quiet. At least at first. Because a few hours later, a doctor walked in with my x-rays. And what they showed didn't match their story at all. In our family, things were rarely questioned. Not because everything made sense, but because certain people were never expected to explain themselves. My sister was one of them. She had always been the center of attention. The one my parents protected, defended, and, when necessary, excused. If something went wrong, there was always a reason. A justification. A way to make it seem like it wasn't really her fault. I was different. Not ignored. Just expected to understand. To adjust. To let things go. You're more reasonable, my mom would say. You don't need to take things so seriously, my dad would add. It sounded like praise. But it wasn't. It was permission. Permission for things to stay exactly the way they were. And for a long time, I accepted that. Because it was easier than pushing back. Easier than questioning something that everyone else seemed comfortable with. But patterns don't stay invisible forever. Eventually, they become too consistent to ignore. Too obvious to explain away. And once you start noticing them, you realize they've been there all along. Looking back, I can see it clearly now. The way every situation somehow bent in her direction. The way every outcome ended the same way. She moved forward. And I was expected to move on. The day it happened didn't start differently. That's what makes it harder to understand. There was no warning. No sign that anything was about to change. It was just another normal afternoon. We were both home. My parents were out, running errands. The house was quiet. Too quiet, now that I think about it. I remember we were talking. At first, it was nothing serious. Just a conversation that slowly shifted into something sharper. Not loud. Just tense. She said something I didn't agree with. I responded. And for a moment, it felt like one of those small disagreements that would pass in a few minutes. But it didn't. Something in her expression changed. Subtle. But enough for me to notice. Why do you always have to make things difficult? She asked. I'm not, I replied. I'm just being honest. That's when the air shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough to make everything feel off. I remember taking a step back. Not out of fear. Just instinct. And then, everything blurred. A sudden movement. A loss of balance. The ground coming up faster than it should have. And then nothing. No clear memory. No explanation. Just a gap, where something important should have been. When I woke up, everything felt distant. Not painful. Just disconnected. Like my body and my thoughts hadn't quite caught up to each other yet. The room was quiet. Too quiet for a place that was supposed to be helping people heal. Then I saw them. My parents. Standing close to the bed, watching me carefully. Relieved, but tense. You're okay, my mom said quickly, stepping closer. Too quickly. Like she had been waiting for me to wake up just to say that. What happened? I asked. My voice sounded weaker than I expected. There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough to feel rehearsed. You fell, my dad said. Just an accident. Accident. That word settled into the room like it was supposed to explain everything. But it didn't. Because something about it didn't feel right. I looked past them. My sister was standing near the door. Quiet. Still. Not saying anything. Not even looking at me directly. Do you remember anything? My mom asked gently. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to find something clear. But all I could see were fragments. A conversation. A shift in tone. A movement that didn't feel like mine. I don't know, I said slowly. And that was the truth. But it wasn't the whole truth. Because even without a full memory, something inside me was already certain. This didn't feel like an accident. The doctor came in later that afternoon. Calm. Professional. The kind of presence that usually makes things feel more certain. But this time, it didn't. He reviewed my chart, asked a few routine questions, then pulled up the x-rays on the screen beside my bed. I wasn't really looking at first. Just listening. Until his tone changed. Not dramatically. Just enough to make me pay attention. Can you walk me through what happened? He asked. I hesitated. My parents said I fell, I replied. He nodded slowly, but his eyes stayed on the screen. Then he turned it slightly so I could see. These patterns, he said carefully, don't always match a simple fall. I stared at the image. I didn't understand all of it, but I understood enough. Because he wasn't saying it directly, but he was saying it. This didn't add up. I felt something settle inside me then. Not fear. Clarity. Later that evening, my parents came back into the room. Same calm expressions. Same careful tone. You should rest, my mom said. And try not to think too much about it, my dad added. I looked at both of them. Really looked this time. You're sure it was an accident? I asked. They didn't hesitate. Of course, my mom said. But this time, I noticed something I hadn't before. They weren't convincing me. They were trying to maintain something. And now, I knew exactly what it was. I didn't confront them right away. Not emotionally. Not impulsively. I waited. Until everything felt clear. The next time they came into the room, I was sitting up, the X-ray images still open on the screen beside me. I didn't say anything at first. I just let them notice it. My mom's expression shifted slightly. My dad looked at the screen, then away. That was enough. I spoke to the doctor, I said calmly. Silence. He said this doesn't match a simple fall. My mom stepped forward quickly. You shouldn't overthink what they say. These things can look worse than they are. I didn't respond to that. Instead, I looked at my sister. Still near the door. Still quiet. Do you want to explain what actually happened? I asked. The room went completely still. My dad's voice came in sharply. There's nothing to explain. But I didn't look at him. I kept my focus on her. Because this wasn't about what they were trying to protect anymore. It was about what she was avoiding. I remember enough, I said quietly. Not everything. Just enough. Her eyes shifted. Just slightly. And in that moment, she knew I wasn't guessing anymore. I was asking her to say it. Out loud. And that was something they couldn't control. No one spoke after that. Not immediately. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt exposed. Like something that had been carefully held together had finally come undone. My sister didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it either. But she didn't need to. Because the truth was already there. In the way she looked away. In the way my parents stopped trying to explain it. I leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle. Not angry. Not even surprised anymore. Just certain. That was the difference. For the first time, I wasn't being asked to ignore what I saw. I wasn't being told to move on. I was simply seeing things clearly. And once you do that, everything changes. Because silence doesn't protect the truth. It only delays it.